Hello again. Now, in World War II, every British and Commonwealth infantryman, as part of their basic webbing equipment, will be issued with these two large front pouches, what we call Bren pouches, but they were called supplementary pouches. Now, an infantryman, even though he was armed with maybe a Sten gun or a Bren or a No. 4 rifle, would carry additional Bren gun magazines for his unit's Bren gun and maybe a couple of Mills bombs in there. He wouldn't carry clips of 303 ammo. 303 ammo would probably be in a bandolier around the guy's chest. But the problem with these Bren pouches, as we call them, is they're a bit bulky. So soon it was found out that not all infantrymen needed such big pouches on the front of the chest, particularly in those occasions where such big pouches would lead to being an obstruction more than a help. And it was found out that things like people who sat down at anti-aircraft guns or people who drive motor vehicles, they still needed some kind of protective firearm, but they didn't need these large pouches which would get in the way. So, based on the old white pattern webbing, a new set of pouches came out in addition to these pouches. The pouches that came out were called cartridge carriers. They were not replacements for these pouches. The cartridge carriers were intended for those people like motor transport drivers who didn't need large pouches but still needed ammunition for their particular firearm of the period, which was the No. 4 rifle. So in comes a pair of 37 pattern cartridge carriers. Okay, so the cartridge carriers, the British cartridge carriers, there's all sorts of variants. Now the problem is, a lot of countries after World War II that took on 37 pattern British webbing that was surplus eventually wore the 37 pattern webbing out. This resulted in those countries making their own versions of 37 pattern webbing. Eventually, that country's own version of the 37 pattern webbing, which was never 37 pattern webbing and never seen service in World War II, ends up back on the collector's market being sold as original World War II items. And sometimes these countries' post-war webbing have got bogus markings on them to pass them off as World War II. Now, out of this lot, some are original World War II and some aren't. So the original World War II ones we'll take a look at. Where are we at? Not that one. That one. Not that one. That's post-war. They're post-war. They're post-war. And they're post-war. So all of those are post-World War II other countries' lookalikes that are often sold as World War II with bogus markings on them. These, so dispense with those, these are the World War II ones. So they're worn in pairs. This was bought as a pair, but turns out it's not a pair. They were worn as pairs in place of the supplementary pouches by motor transport vehicle drivers and gun crews. And each pouch has room for two 5-round 303 clips. In this case, this is a British pouch and it's got a divider. And it's got the usual fittings on the back for clipping over the belt and the fixing for going onto the braces. This one, although it was sold as a pair with this one, is the rarer Canadian issue. The Canadian ones are not very common for a good reason. Inside the British one, there's just a divider. The Canadian one, for some weird reason, has this additional strap. Now, the purpose of that additional strap, some people think your ammo clip goes over the strap and it goes in the pouch. And then when you need the ammo, you go like that and it lifts out the pouch. A bit like the toggle on the side of a Luger holster. You know, you pull the toggle, the Luger holster springs up ready for action. But that's not the case. It doesn't go fully down into the pouch. These is a kind of safety strap to stop the ammo from falling out of the pouch, which if you need to get a 303 5-round clip out of there, this is going to be totally in the way. And a lot of these were never issued. They were dumped in favour of the British version, which doesn't have that attachment on it. That's why the Canadian ones are rarer than the British ones. And this only identifies the Canadian issue. And both pouches have it. So that's a Canadian issue. That's a British Army issue. These two are a mint unissued pair of Royal Air Force issue. Most Royal Air Force issue webbing was never actually issued. And these pair, 1941 by Miko or Meko. See, really nicely marked up. Now, the big difference, other than being World War II and not World War II, the instantly identifiable feature between the World War II and the not World War II is on the poppers. These poppers here. These poppers all have a stippled finish to the button. The post-war lookalikes are smooth. So if we look at the World War II, doesn't matter what it is, so you've got stippled buttons. On the RAF ones, you've got stippled buttons. On the post-war ones, you've got smooth buttons. Now those countries that took on this issue after World War II wore it out and they made their own versions. Like I've said, their own versions are coming back onto the market being sold as World War II issue, which they're not. So we've had a look at Canadian, British Army, RAF. You've also got this pair, which looks like RAF or Navy issue, but it's not. I don't know if these have any markings on them, but there's a marking underneath there. But you quite often find bogus markings on these post-war pouches. These are actually post-World War II, 1950s to 1978 Belgian police issue. And to further complicate things, not only did the Belgians issue them in this blue webbing, they also issued them in World War II Army, British Army lookalike. But again, smooth poppers. Now to further complicate things, not only were these issued by the Belgians with this thick webbing strap, they were also issued with a thin webbing strap. And I don't know if these have any bogus markings on them or not, as the case may be. Not these ones don't anyway. But you can see how the post-war Belgian Army one looks like the World War II British one. And this is another pair of post-World War II Belgian. And also the Italians made very similar ones. Now not only did the Italians make double pouches, the Italians also made World War I lookalike triple pouches. And sometimes these turned up on the market with bogus British World War I stampings on them. And again, smooth popper. And each one has a divider. All the post-war ones have a divider for 2, 3 or 3 clips. Yep, fake World War II dates on this one. So let's see where the fake World War II dates are at. There you go. Post-war Italian, never seen World War II. Well, that's been added for commercial gain by a bogus dealer. So anybody who saw those would swear blind the World War II issue. But not. That's a fake date and a fake War Department stamp on post-World War II Italian cartridge pouches. So you need to be careful when it comes to these cartridge pouches. Like I say, I bought these as a pair, but they're not a true pair, so I need to get another British one and another Canadian one. But sometimes they were paired up that way, but they were never a pair, if you see what I mean. So yeah, it's weird how the Canadian one, where are you at? The Canadian one has this weird strap, which is more of a safety strap than anything else, but it impedes the access in it to get the ammo out. Completely weird. And only the minty ones will be dated up. These are issued to death and washed out and coloured all sorts of different colours. So find one with the actual World War II dating like these unissued ones from the RAF. very rare, but most of this RAF blue webbing stuff is unissued anyway, so most of it will have clear markings and clear dates on them. So that's a pair RAF, British, Canadian, Belgian, Italian, Belgian police, and a triple Italian. So yeah, 37 pattern cartridge carriers, and some of them not all as they seem. So you need to be careful when it comes to choosing them. Bye for now.